Welcome to another edition of In Between the Pages with James Lott Jr. You know who I am. I'm James Lott Jr. And I love reading. You know that already on here. I support authors of all kinds, especially indie authors, but also this is an author who's also a veteran. And, I say this all the time. I come from a veteran family myself. I didn't serve myself, but anybody who serves, to me, deserves whatever they need from me. Now, if that's helping promote a book, I'm going to promote a book by a veteran. So I'm very excited about that. And his book is good, folks. It's a page turner and it's good. It talks about all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to read a piece of his bio. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was in the special ops aviation for the Air Force, combat special missions aviators. I mean, he flying all that stuff, doing all that kind of stuff. He also got an award. It's an Air Force Jolly Green Rescue Mission of the Year award in 2018. We'll talk about that a little bit. The book talks about all kinds of stuff in there too. But also, he talks about some tender things like having love in there. I didn't expect that when I read the book. The book is it feels like a conversation, you guys, and now we're going to have a conversation with its author, the one who lived the story, Anthony Dyer. Hi, Anthony.
Hey, James, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
It's my pleasure to have you on here too. And again, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I really do. Before I get into the book, so because this is all part of the book, I want people to read the book. We're not going to tell everything is in the book. I want people to read it and check it out. But when you look back, when you were writing this, you look back at your time in the service. Do you still feel it was a good idea to go into the service?
I really do. I think, when I hit that, the ultimate, basically the dad talk he gave me when I was 18 and, time to get a job, go to college, or get out. And basically that fork in the road to make a decision. And if anything, it gave me the opportunity to make a decision and stick with it to get through something hard. Right. And, that's sort of, I've learned a lot about perseverance, through the service itself. And just, I've been to some good places, bad places, good people, bad people. But at the end, man, I wouldn't trade any of those moments or people for anything in the world. So
would you encourage someone who's on that cusp of life of like, okay, I don't really want to go to college. I don't know if I want to go to trade school. I don't know if I just go to work. Like, would you encourage someone to say, oh, maybe check out the armed forces?
I would say 100%. Yeah. If you definitely want to travel the world and, and like I said in the book there, live a house money life, take that chance. I saw a quote the other day and it was something to the effect of like, I don't know if I agree with it, but like, 9 to 5s, how to go, 9 to 5s are basically like, built by not taking chances, but legacy is taking a chance. You know what I mean? That's how empires are built. Is what they were saying. But yeah, I think that taking that chance, getting out in the open, test your mettle, get out of your, the culture that we all grew up in and see different cultures, different people. There's all parts of the world, and there's good and bad with that. And they both stay with you. I'll say that. But yeah, it's definitely a good learning experience. So.
Well, yeah, in the book you talk about some you've had some harrowing experiences, but for you grew up in the mountains of Appalachia, right?
I did, yeah.
So you had a chance to really see the world. I mean, like, did you ever think growing up that you would see the world? I mean, because you grew up in such a very kind of a unique area of America.
Yeah, I never like growing up thought I would. I thought I was going to be there in the Appalachians of West North Carolina for the rest of my life. And I sort of get into that. I get to the point in my career where I was home on leave actually, and I see the same cracks in the road, is what I call it. And I was like, man, like there's so much more to life than these cracks. And I decided, man, I don't want to leave cracks. I want to leave craters. And that's when I decided to start flying on the mighty AC-130 gunship and the 16th Special Operations Squadron. It definitely gave me the opportunity to leave craters. And in the end, you can't take nothing with you when we pass, right? And the only thing I believe you can truly leave behind is how you're measured, how people view your footprint, right? And sort of legacy has always, since that point, played a big part of my decisions and why we do what we do.
I agree with that. I'm thinking about legacy now, the things that I do on these shows, and I have kids and grandkids, and so I'm already thinking my grandkids see me online. They see me doing stuff. It depends on stories like this. I'm showing them that there's a story out there. It's really good and it's serious, and there's other options of life. And I think about legacy all the time too. I do. I think it's what we leave behind, right? It's how you make people. It's how you make people feel. That's
yeah. Yeah, and the material things of life, like I think I put that quote in the book there. There's no U-Haul behind a hearse, right? we're not taking any of this with us. So leave that footprint, leave those craters,
I mean, I like some nice stuff every once in a while, but the point
Oh
is,
yeah.
I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
I told you, but you're right. We have to live a little bit, right?
Oh yeah.
But I agree with you. I'm being funny, but I agree with you completely that um, all this stuff. You don't have your health, you don't have family or friends. Like, it means nothing. It really means nothing. And you were in some stuff that you saw firsthand. Um, Teamwork.
Oh yeah.
I mean, life and death. I mean, you saw things that were teamwork. When you, there's another question because you talk about this in the book a little bit too. When you're in it, I know because you're in it, you're in it, right? So I mean, it's
Right.
now you're looking back and stuff. But I was just trying to think. Do you look back and go, "Wow, I was always in these situations that could have turned sour or gone south, but you survived." So how does that feel to you now, looking back on it?
Yeah, I actually had this conversation. It got brought up. The guardian angel concept got brought up the other day, and I think about these moments, right? When it's this is it, right? You're seeing tracer fires, both ways, and you're landing on this dirt road, and praying to God that everybody gets out of it, and it's a leap of blind faith, and to me, really living is getting to that point where you have to have that just that leap of like, hey, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. To me, that's what sort of like the term touching the face of God is, and it's about really just being your very best on the worst day of your life, and with that, like you said, teamwork, your brothers and sisters, they get you through it. And then when that dust settles, I've come to find too, they also get you through it then, that support network, your family, your friends, and your faith, right? So yeah, I've learned a lot in that aspect from those situations, that God and life, put me in. So
And he talks about it in the book, folks. He talks about it in the book. That's what I'm kind of asking. I want you guys to read the stories he's telling because it's very, like I said, it's like a conversation. Like you're talking to us for a couple of hours. That's how I feel like it is. Which I love. I love books like that. So I'm like, oh, this is guy like he's talking to us. Um, when you talk about teamwork and I guess cause I always wonder how that is because you have to be positive on some level because you can't be negative in those situations because they might get you killed. But then also you got to be realistic.
right.
I always wonder. So I always just wonder how. I used to be a nurse, so I understand that in certain situations.
Oh
I've
yeah.
had patients. It was life or death. I understand sometimes, but you like you said, there's fire happening on both sides.
Right.
You're there for a certain mission. You're trying to survive that, plus finish your mission, plus look out for your fellow compadres out there. Has that made you like a more well-rounded multitasking kind of person because you have to like all these different things at the same time.
Yeah, it definitely. As far as multitasking, in that aspect alone, it drives my wife crazy sometimes because there could be like five different conversations happening, and just listening to the radios flying, you learn to pick up on what's important, right? And what's the meat and the potatoes, what's the overall end game of this objective, and you pick up on that stuff, and as far as the people you're doing these missions with, and friends, like you're surrounded by you, like I say, your four quarters, not your 100 pennies, and basically you trust each other with your best friend's life is the only way I can really describe that level of trust, and just again, that blind faith in each other, as well as a higher being that you're going to get through this.
Yeah. But was that we have to ask? I mean, was there a time you thought, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can do it. I'm sure there must be there's some low points in there. You're just thinking, how do I just like and obviously you relied on you said your faith, your friends and family. How'd you get through that?
Yeah. So I was on this is when I was on the helicopter, the rescue mission side of things. It was 8 June of 2018, and I always tell people, we saw the best side of combat search and rescue that day, and the worst side, meaning we saved, five guys, and then one Eagle, one American. When he got back to the operating table, unfortunately passed away, and I just you get to that point where like your sense of purpose, your why, like your whole motto for that mission is these things we do that others may live, and when that it's not what you do in life that haunts you, it's what you don't do, and but then you realize like okay, like this is a very traumatic event, and your friends start to see the impacts, your family start to see the impacts, and that it's okay to not be okay after something like that, and 2 decades of war, and being in a trauma field like a nurse, firefighter, something like that. Like, it's not, you have to get to that point where you have to take that tactical knee and realize like, man, like I need to get this right, so I can heal and basically, move on. So.
Yeah, it's very true. I know people ask me. I used to work when I first started. I was in the ER and stuff. So you see everything, right? And so I remember people saying, "Well, how do you do it?" I go, "You just do it. Something just kicks in. Your training kicks in. Whatever just kicks in, and you just do it." So I'm assuming for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
your training, you have training. Hopefully, you paid attention.
Yeah.
You know what to do. Plus, just I'm sure just instinct comes in too, right? At the same time, right?
Oh yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the training part kicking in because I remember like I'll sort of go over the first minute of that flight. We scrambled to the helicopter and we take off and we're in a right hand bank. So the left gunner had what we call a runaway gun. We're basically it's mechanically firing just out of control. It's hitting the ground, because of a worn steer notch. And then I pulled our chaff and flare pins, which protects us against surface to air missiles. And we jettisoned all of our flares, hundreds of flares going out, these fireballs that, protect us. And I could literally feel the heat from it. And then, then the comms is chaos, is organized chaos that's going on. And I'm trying to, see what's really going on and get the information I need. And it gets to a point where I'm like, literally, what the F is going on, and but then you're like, okay, the training kicks in. I've been here before through repetition, through this is what everything I've trained for has brought me to this moment, and it kicks in, and your adrenaline comes down a little bit, and you almost turn into like a robot, And what's that saying? Reaction versus responding, right? That's a real thing in combat, and the fog of war and things like that, and these type of jobs, right?
Yes. I'm looking at some of the stuff that you talked about, and it's all foreign to me. I have no. I'm just like, wow, that just sounds amazing to me. I don't even know what that all means. Um, but I like reading. I like hearing about it. I just love hearing about it because I just feel like you're doing something that many of us don't do, and others who are watching who have done it also will be like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. I know he gets it. And I just think that just it's just me saying this, and I don't get too political on these shows, but I just for me, you did something that was was so incredible that it should be celebrated. It should be known. I'm glad you're telling me you decided to tell some of these stories because you're one of millions out there who have stories like this and others, and some didn't make it. And at least you made it, and you're actually shining a light. Was that part of your thought as writing this book? It's a memoir, so you're telling your story. But was part of your thought like I'm also kind of sharing others' experience, kind of with as I'm telling my story?
100%. Yeah. I tell people I wrote it for really two reasons, and the whole idea of writing it, I was getting prolonged exposure treatment with a psychiatrist my last year in, and she was like a USOCOM psychiatrist. And the part of that, exposure is you're writing the story out over and over and over, and you're getting to the root cause of what causes, your PTSD and basically get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then, the first time I told the story, I cried. Heck, the psychiatrist, she cried as well, and then she must have you said 100 times you should tell your story, and I said no, and then when I got out, and I realized, when you out process the military, oftentimes there's this door, right, where like there's no door handle on the other side, so you can walk out but you can't really get back in. And and I thought about it, I was, if I do tell these stories, right, it does two things. It shows the rest of America, hey, this is what goes on when you're sleeping, and the realm of special operations and stuff like that. And also, you know, if one person gets help from this story, then that's a blessing. That's a win, And so and basically it's saying, hey, it's okay to, if you have words in your heart and you need to bleed them on a page, do it. Like it's part of healing.
Well, number one, congratulations for your
Thank
therapy.
you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a for us men, it's hard for us to talk about stuff.
It really is. Yeah. And I went in there with a chip on my shoulder. I'll never forget, man. I'm like, what does this lady know about,
Yes.
combat and all this stuff, and then she gave me the cliche analogy of like, you wouldn't go to a dentist to fix your car, right? And it made sense though at the time, really good. I was like, okay, I get it. So,
Yeah, I go to a dentist. It's a car.
yeah,
You might be a good mechanic at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but that's no, but for just again, for people out there, there's a lot of PTSD, a lot of stuff that goes on because you're seeing, if you're a veteran and in combat, you've seen things that you probably shouldn't have seen. So you got to deal with it. I mean, like you said earlier, it sticks with you. It just sticks with you. Nobody's fault. It just sticks with you. So you got to get it out somehow, so you don't hurt the people, hurt yourself. So that's what I'm saying again. I'm glad. Just congratulations for doing that. Because I know a lot of veterans come out and they're just like, now what? They have all these
Oh
feelings,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%. That sense of identity, that's a real thing when you get out, some of these jobs. And In a way I had to sort of like, get over myself a little bit and realize, hey, this machine keeps going, right? And I always tell this to everyone, whether when you're in these type of jobs, right, and veteran, first responder, nurses, right, like we're very normal men and women doing very abnormal, unordinary, extraordinary things, so it's not if, it's when you're going to need that tactical pause, and just get it right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's wonderful. Um, you also talk about something that I'm going to switch gears for a second because I just didn't expect this. And part of the book, it's very sweet. Talks about falling in love, talks about
Oh
having
yeah.
a kid. It's. I was like, oh, there we go, because cause the first time we're rooting for you. But you were talking about growing up, talking about going in combat, and there's still some combat. There's still some talk later in, but just like then you all of a sudden there's this whole thing about meeting your partner, and it's very cute. So I'm like, again, as a man, we're not used to talking about that either. We don't just express that. So please talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was joking today with my wife. I was like, yeah, I used to be a hopeless romantic. Now I'm just not as hopeless, like, but yeah, yeah. So my wife. So first of all, I grew up in Western North Carolina, which is in a town that was adjacent, very close to the Eastern Band of Cherokee, the nation there, and so I got to grow up. It's a beautiful culture, Native American culture, and I've always been intrigued by just their perseverance, their beautiful dances, and all these different traditional things that really opened up my eyes to a lot of different actually a lot of healing, and was part of that. But yeah, and then I get to eastern New Mexico. My wife's from the Navajo Nation, and there's the show that's out. It's called Reservation Dogs. There's a character on there called Willie Jack, and there's some common phrases that I would often hear even growing up. It was like it's short "scoden," like which means "let's go." Then a slang type thing, and we were playing basketball one day, and I just got back from deployment, and probably a couple of days before that, if that, and maybe a day, but like I realized, hey, she has some native, features, and I've noticed some language and some slang that I haven't heard that in a long time, and I asked her if are you native, and we were on this bridge walking across from the gym to the other side of where her college was, East or ENMU there, and at that moment, she smiled and said, "Yeah." And I just knew at that moment, my wife's my rock. She's been with me ever since, and I love, she makes a lot of pottery and stuff like that, and just her culture, and just she even speaks a Navajo language. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's a almost like a language of love itself. But yeah, she had me from the get go. I was in the friend zone a little bit, so man, if you're out there, you eventually climb out of it. So just keep trying, persistence, right?
Well,
Yeah.
women are a little different. They need a little more.
Yeah.
They want to feel safe and secure, right? And then they're not
Yeah.
sure about this man coming in here, doing that. And I just have to say on a side note because I'm part Cherokee, and I know, and my grandmother was on a reservation, so I know all about that. And I'm glad you said there is some beautiful stuff and healing things that go on in a lot of these native cultures.
Oh
Reservoir
yeah.
Dogs, folks, is a show that's on FX. It was really good, and it was done by native people. There's a couple of shows out there. One called North of North. It's also about Native people in Alaska. There's some great shows out there. Just a little side note, folks. I love that you were able to, because I said reading your story was very cute. It was like okay, we're going from like this raw, guns blazing over here to now I have a wife, my child is born. As a father myself, I know exactly. I fell in love with my child soon. The child was born. I just fell right in love. Soon they placed her in my hands. I always tell her, they placed you in my hands. That was it. I was sold, right? What you sold to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I tell people I've had many call signs, throughout my career. Like Uncle Tito was one of them, for example, and just different names and like BDA stuff like that. And I tell people the best one I ever had was when she called me Dad. That's get teary eyed thinking about it, but yeah, just it's a beautiful thing to have a kid, and it's a blessing, man. So
Yeah, I know. It's like we're men here. We're not gonna cry, folks. We're men. We're not gonna cry.
yeah, yeah,
No, I know. I get it. No, I no. I said, and my daughter, her birthday's actually this weekend as we're recording this, and I'm gonna go see
that's
her.
awesome. Heck yeah.
Yeah, and I can't believe she's 38 years old. I don't know how that happened. I'm only 40, so I don't know how that happened. And I'm just kidding. I wish I was 40. I'm not 40 anymore. But I look at it, I go, I still remember that baby. I just remember that baby. And I go, I remember that little girl. And it's like, dang, you're growing with kids of your own. It's like, it's
Oh yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's part of my I remember one point like the psychiatrist even tell me like, like all this is ending, right? Your service and flying on the gunship, all this stuff, and basically like she's like you need to change what your legacy is now, right? Like, and to me what that means, what she was saying is like I get it now, is like being the best father I could be, being the best husband I could be, being the best parent I could be, just try to be a decent person through all this, and to me that's what matters now. That's my job, is being a dad 100%.
Yeah, that's so good. So I'm going to ask you this: how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Every day, every night, I look in that accountability mirror, and I'm like, I can answer that question. Hey, was I the best person I could be today? Was I the best father, husband? Did I drink today? Did I pick up a bottle? Did I pick up a pen? And that's a lot of what writing does. Is when I get that urge to drink. And if you've ever had that bug, I feel for you. Addiction's a serious thing. But I feel like I'm a better man for picking up that pen over that bottle.
Yeah, I like that being a pen. Well, a pen is mightier than a sword. I always say a
Oh
pen
yeah,
is something. And I think because you coming for you come from your mind has been expanded, which is a great. That's always a great thing. I mean, now
oh
you
yeah,
see the world. You've seen the world. You can talk about the world at large, not just some little small. A lot of folks need to have a little area they know, and that's it. But you can say I've been to places around the world that you may have not been to. And I can tell you all about them
oh
and
yeah.
cultures. And I'm gonna ask you, what is one? This is totally fluffy, but leaving your area and experiencing food from all kinds of cultures, what is your favorite food these days that you like?
So my favorite food is crab legs. I've always loved crab legs. We didn't have a lot of it growing up in the mountains, but like every now and then, yeah, we go to the beach and and we'd go TDY somewhere with be near the ocean, right? And it's crab legs, man. I love them, man, for whatever reason.
They're good. I like them. My
Oh
friends
yeah,
from Louisiana, so of course we know about crab legs down there. But I like crab legs. I was just saying, like,
oh
I'm
yeah,
thinking, like my mother said when she grew up in a place where she grew up, there's certain things they didn't eat because it just wasn't there. So it wasn't until
yeah.
she left her home town and went other places, she tasted other things. So I'm just kind of curious if what are your things. I have one friend, his favorite food is Filipino food. He left where he's from, and that's his favorite food. I'm like, so it's kind of, I think it's fun to go out and try other things like shellfish or Filipino. It's fun. Food's
Oh
good.
yeah, and there's I mean there's some really good contenders there. I've had the talking about the Filipino food, the lumpia.
Yes.
I get my one of my best friends' wife is Filipino, and man, she makes that for us, and is awesome food. That, and then I've been to South Korea as well one time, and I had some what do you call it, bulgogi,
Oh yeah.
and beef carby ribs. I
Yep.
love it, man.
Delicious. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
It was good. Um, Congratulations on the book.
thank
How do
you.
you feel the book being out there? Are you okay with everything you wrote in the book and it's out there for everybody to read? Because that's a hard you're putting your heart into this and you're putting it out there.
Yeah, my publisher actually, well, the first time he read it, and it was still getting, edited and stuff, he's like, "Man, you really took the veil off," and I figure that's part of, talk about living the house money life, right? Taking chances and being vulnerable, is getting these words out there. And, I feel better, and there's still points to my life where like I don't think it's actually like fully set in yet, because I had an aero gunner I used to fly with on the gunship the other day. He's like, "Hey man, do you realize like you have a book published?" And it wasn't what he said, it was sort of how he said it. I was like, man, like, coming from you, that like I sort of get it now. I guess to me it was a big deal, and it's a exciting experience. I tell people, no matter what's, if you got something in your heart, bleed it on the page, you'll feel better.
Book's called Moonchild, a memoir. The roots and wings of a USAF Combat Special Missions aviator. Anthony Dyer is the author. You can find it on Amazon. They have Kindle. They have paperback. It's good. Get it. Support. Anthony, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, James. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. So, folks, I always end the shows with, because this is a book podcast. Again, support indie authors, support big ones too, but support indie authors too. There are a lot of stories out there, whether they're nonfiction or fiction, that are out there. And I say explore them, see what they're talking about. If you're somebody who's looking for someone like you, if you're a veteran and you're in the Air Force, or whatever, get his book. You might relate to it, and I think that it's books aren't going anywhere. People are reading, whether it's audio books or Kindle or whatever. That people are reading. Support the author, support the indie author. And so we do here on in between the pages. We're on Facebook. I'm everywhere else. See you next time.